Set that sun.
All the video in the Hula for Life program has been flipped from the original view into mirror view to make it easy for you to follow along. So when Betty Ann says right and left, that means your right and left. What could be easier?
Make that nice valley. Slide right, slide left. This section of Hula for Life is all about your feet. So we're going to analyze how to do each step in the hula. So we're not doing hands. You can put your hands on your hips and just forget about them. The most basic step in the hula is the vamp. In Hawaiian, it's the kaholo. We'll call it the vamp. And the good news is that it's just a two-step. It's a step together, step, tap, step, together, step, tap, step, together, step, tap, step, together, step, tap. The difference between the two-step and the hula is what you do with your hips. To get the hip motion, bend your knees. Don't worry about your hips. The hips will follow in the natural course of events. So I tell all my students, bend your knees, do the right footwork, and the hip sway will follow. So it's step, together, step, tap, step, together, step, tap. This is the vamp. And you'll do this in hula more than probably you do all the other steps put together. The hip sway is called the ka'o in Hawaiian, and it's just about shifting your weight and moving your hips in a figure 8 while you do that. So balance and shifting weight is all important in all steps of the hula. But in this hip sway, you bend your knees. Let's put your hands back on your hips, bend your knees, and starting over at about 9 o'clock, come back on that figure 8, cross over and go up to about 2 o'clock. Bring your hip back, cross over to the left to about 10 o'clock, come back and cross over. So you make a figure 8. And as you're crossing the X in the 8, you shift your weight from one foot to the other. So if you're going this way, shift there, shift your weight to the right, shift your weight to the left at the X, shift your weight to the right. So here we go. This is the hip sway or the ka'o. You must bend your knees or you cannot execute the stance. And the goal is to move your hips as an isolated movement. You do not want to move your upper body. So it might help to put your hands on your shoulders to pretend you're holding them still, and just move your hips in a figure 8. So it's to the left, to the right, to the left, to the right, and that's the hip sway or ka'o. The slide is just a protracted two-step. It's double two-step. So to do the slide, let's put our hands back on our hips. To learn how to do this, you step a little bit forward and back. And this just gives a little variety. So you don't want to move in a flat, straight line in either direction. So you move a little bit forward to the right and right again. Tap, left, forward, left, back, left, forward, left, tap. Step, step, tap, step, step, tap. So it's 4 counts in each direction. So we go to the right, to the right, to the right, to the right, tap, left, 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 tap. That's the slide. And your hand motions can be very beautiful and interpretive in the hula, but right now we're just working on our footwork. Just that slide. And it can be big steps. It's a traveling step. So if you really want to go across the stage or across the room, this is probably the step you're going to use to do that. But right now we're just going to concentrate on doing it in a kind of small way. So we just do right, tap, left, right, right, and right, tap. Left, 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 and left. Tap, slide, 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 slide. Left, 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 left. And that's that. The next step is the rock. In Hawaiian, we call it the Kalakaua. That's after King David Kalakaua, who ruled Hawaii in the mid-1800s and is a very important figure in the history of the hula. We'll call it the rock because it's a step that takes you to and fro in a rocking motion. It basically is just shifting your weight from the right to the left as you go forward and backwards. Let's put our hands on our hips, and here's the rock or the Kalakaua. It's a forward and back, and forward and back. Tap, forward and back, and forward and back. So it's a shifting of the weight. Start with your weight on your left side, and then shift it to the right, shift it to the right, forward, and back. Then now it's on your right side, shift it to the left, forward, and back. Tap. So it's like the slide, but you're not moving anywhere. You're just staying in place, shifting your weight. Forward and back. Tap. But it's all 4x4. Hula is all about 4 beats. 1, 2, 3, 4. Tap. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Tap. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Tap. The Kalakaua or the rock. Forward and back. And forward and back. The walk is a figure 8 with a forward motion. And of course, it's the 4x4 of all hula motions. I'm going to show you 2 versions of it. What you do is step forward on your right foot, tap, left foot, tap, right foot, tap, left foot, tap. Let's go back on a vamp or a kaholo. Okay, start again. With the weight on the left foot, step to your right, and your hips go in a figure 8. Right and left, and back. 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Forward, 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 and forward, and back. 2, 3, and back. 2, 3. So when you step forward, you kind of tilt to the side, lean to the side, and your hips are going into figure 8. What? Back. And back. 2, 3. So that's the lele in Hawaiian, or we'll call it the walk. The variation of that is that you do 2 steps forward, and then you do a quick 1, 2, 3 You still are staying within your 4 beats. That is 1, 2, and a 1, 2, 3. And move back. So it's right, tap, right, left, right, tap. And we'll move back to our beginning position. So that's a 1 and a 2 and a 1, 2, 3. That's a lele. 1, 2, 3. Possibly the most fun step in all of hula is called the ummi. It's spelled A-M-I. Sometimes in English it's called around the island because your hips are moving in a circle. That's actually technically another step. We'll just call it the ummi. Use the Hawaiian word for it. And it's a matter of having your hips move in a circle while you shift your weight from one foot to the other. So I think one way of thinking about doing this is think about your hips moving around the face of a clock. So we can talk about the hours on the face of that clock as we were looking down on it. So let's start. Put your weight on your left foot and start to shift it to your right, and you move your hips around back to 6 o'clock and over to 3 o'clock, 12 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 6. And this has to do with the beat. So on the beat, you want to be at 6 o'clock. Your hips want to be in the back at 6 o'clock. Shift to 3 and 1, 2, 3, 4. So your hips are at 6 o'clock on the beat. This is the beat. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. This is the ummi. And you don't want to move your whole body like this in a big circle. You want to have your hips move, and it's kind of an isolated movement. The hula is a very subtle dance. You don't want to make huge motions, big circles. You want it to be small. Ummi can be small. Again, it's like the ka'o. Put your hands on your shoulders to hold them still and keep your hips moving in that circle. And it might help to raise, when you're at 9 o'clock on a right ummi, raise your right heel and bring it down to the floor at 6 o'clock on the beat to kind of emphasize that. So, heel, heel. 1, 2. And your shoulders are still, just your hips are going in that circle. This is a very good exercise for your spine, very good for the lower back. The traditional way of closing or ending a hula is with one of 2 poses. And I will show both of them to you. And mostly it will be at the end of a vamp or a kaholo. So here's the kaholo or the vamp. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, and point the right foot out. Bring the hands out. Right hand over the left hand. Bow your head just a little bit, not really deep. You don't want to get down like this, just a little bit. An inclination. So let's count that out. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. That's when all the motions come together. Right foot is out, pointed, hands are together, head is down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. The other pose to close, and we'll use this in hukilau, is 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. Hand motions are very important in the hula because the hands tell the story. Hula is an interpretive dance. It's not sign language, but the hands are very important. And to have graceful hands is important to the hula. You've heard the song Lovely Hula Hands. That's what it's all about. The most basic hand motion, we'll call it the common motion, is the motion that we do with the vamp or the kaholo. And actually, the common motion is behind just about every other motion. If you're doing a flower, it still has a beginning in that common motion. And the secret of that motion is in the wrist. So let's find that secret and follow it from a big motion to a small motion. Big motion, pretend that your arms and your wrists and your fingers are ribbons coming out of your shoulders, and they're fluttering in the breeze. They're flowing behind you so that your arms go up, the wrists go up, the fingers follow. The fingers do not lead. The fingers follow the wrist. Make that hand motion smaller and smaller and smaller until the site of the action is the wrist out to the fingers. And that's the common motion. It can be on both sides. This is beautiful hand motion. Lovely hula hands. And then whatever the lyrics of the song are, we want to follow that or describe that through our hands. So if I'm telling you a story, my hands come to my mouth and then out to you. Both hands out to you. But it's always this wrist motion. Always that action. Out to you. From my heart to you. I'm talking to you. I'm looking at you, to your eyes. But you see, it's always in the wrist. And the hands follow. The fingers follow the wrist. I'm listening to you. I hear you. I hear your call. It's a call of love. And all the motions still have that wrist and finger motion. Even the wind can be made. You can do it with one arm, always has that wrist motion. Or wind can be a storm like this with two arms, two hands, but it always comes back to that wrist. The wrist follows. Tree, palm tree, swaying in the trade winds. Up the mountains, where the flowers, here's a flower. Pick a flower, hold the flower, open the flower. Pick it on the other side. It's all in the wrist. And we'll do hand motions when we do the interpretive hulas.